I'll say this, the greatest message you can give to remind ourselves of and those that we meet is we need to dream big.
Burgess Owens from Superbowl to United States Congressman. He is a former NFL star who now serves as U.S. Congressman, fighting for faith, freedom, and the American dream.
This is the one place, the one environment, the one culture that has been from the very beginning. You dream past your obstacles. If you do that, you find out that we all have a lot more in ourselves that we ever thought we could have. We sometimes don't see that potential, but if we dream big, have a faith in a God that can give us those potentials by just doing the right things, it's everything we can do. It becomes a very rewarding life, to say the least. The time I grew up in the Deep South in the 60s, days of segregation, KKK, Jim Crow. But within our community, we had a lot of pride. We felt like all the other Americans at that time. We were not assimilating, but we were proud to be Americans. My dad had just come back from World War II. We felt that the way to get respect was not by demanding it or begging for it, but commanding it by success. I think the key to success, one of the things that I've come to understand, if you have a big dream, how willing you are to overcome the obstacles, the anxiety, the self-doubt, the fear of failure, all those things that stop so many people. If the dream is big enough, you get those habits, those little habits of continuous doing the things you feel uncomfortable to do that you realize it's going to be okay when you get past it.
Super Bowl champion, 1980 with the Oakland Raiders. I think Super Bowl is one of the most amazing achievements one can actually gain as sports, especially in the United States as well. What is the most, or what's the best lesson that you've learned from that experience?
What a great question, because this is something that I've tied into my team. What I'd like to remind people who don't know, there were 12 years of losing seasons before I got to the 13th.
The code to winning. Insights you need today to seize the world tomorrow. Today we have a very, very special guest, an interview I've been looking forward to for approximately 6 months or so. I'm going to give you a brief introduction of our guest today. He goes by the name of Burgess Owens, Congressman Burgess Owens. He was born in Florida. He was part of the Miami Hurricanes as one of 4 African Americans to receive full ride scholarship as well. He was the 13th overall first round NFL draft pick in 1973. He won the Super Bowl in 1980 with the Oakland Raiders, a member of the House of Representatives. He also is also the member of the House of Education and Workforce Committee and a member of the House of Transportation Infrastructure Committee as well. Like I said, this is going to be a very, very enlightening interview. Someone I've been looking forward to interview, a lot of experience, a mentor, a leader as well. Without further ado, our guest today, Burgess Owens. Thank you, Congressman Owens.
Looking forward to it, my friend. Absolutely.
Awesome stuff.
Very, very exciting.
Awesome. I just had a very, very embarrassing moment today. I was about a minute late. I'm usually always about 10 minutes early, but as I'm walking towards the podcast studio, as you know, Congressman Owens is very, very punctual, arrived here way on time. I'm out there fixing my tie, and I just see a large man, tall, large in stature, just looking at me as I'm fixing my tie. Very, very embarrassing. But luckily, he gave me a very wonderful and warm smile. So that's the reason why we're still here today. Thank you very much.
Well, looking forward to it. We had a chance to get to know each other a little bit, and your background is very interesting too. And I'll say this. What I love about hearing from people like yourself, young people, is that you understand the American dream is alive and well, and you're willing to go for it, you're willing to take the risk, and the ups and downs of life, you're willing to see past that. And that's really the message that we should always continue to give out, that this is the place to take the chance and go for it.
Thank you so much. It really is true. I often tell, I studied financial economics. I graduated in financial economics. I did like 2 internships in New York. I've obviously pursued the sales and entrepreneurial space, but I often tell people a lot, like, this is not only the capital of capitalism, but it's also the opportunity where you can actually achieve anything. And I feel like there is just something, there's an energy, there's just something that allows entrepreneurs to just reach their full potential. And that's one of the things I'm super grateful for. And I've been pursuing it from the minute I arrived in JFK Airport, kissed the ground and said, well, this is the American dream, let's pursue it. So I'm grateful you touched on that.
I'll say this, the greatest message you can give to remind ourselves of and those that we meet is we need to dream big. This is the one place, the one environment, the one culture that has been from the very beginning. You dream past your obstacles. If you do that, you find out we all have a lot more in ourselves that we ever thought we could have. We sometimes don't see that potential, but if we dream big, have a faith in a God that can give us those potentials by just doing the right things, it's everything we can do, then it becomes a very rewarding life, to say the least.
Awesome stuff. Thank you very much, Congressman. I want to touch a bit about, there's a lot of topics that we're going to try and just cover right now. For instance, football, politics, and also leadership. But how would you define yourself today from all those specific components as well?
That's a good question. I've become an eternal optimist. I think that's very, very important. You have to always have a little bit of that hope out there, no matter how tough things get. If you can have enough hope to take the next step, have enough hope to realize that everything's going to work out okay in the end, and no matter what you're going through, then through that process you learn, you grow up. I'm sitting here talking with you, and when I was probably your age and a little bit younger, I was very much of an introvert. I wasn't a person who's going to do a lot of talking. I just didn't feel like comfortable doing that. But in the process of realizing that my dreams are on the other side of that fear of speaking, I figured how to approach it, how to get better, and got into a reading regiment for 25, 30 years that really helped me come out of that. And it's amazing how it works out. So I would say the biggest thing is I'm an eternal optimist. I believe that if you dream big, you can overcome any obstacle that comes at you. If you know that you're here for a reason, that each and every one of us has a mission. What that mission is takes a while sometimes to understand what it is, but once you get it, you know why you get up every single day. You feel that whatever you're doing is not work. And once you tie that mission into your dreams, into the fact you're here for a purpose, then it all works out. And then the fact that we live in the greatest country in the history of mankind gives us that foundation to know that this is the place to make those things happen.
I love that so much. And I mean, I grew up in a very strong Christian background household as well. My father's actually an attorney back in South Africa, and I kind of told you about like the where he is like in leadership in the church as well. I feel something he instilled in us from a very young age is just the importance of education. Continue to educate yourself, continue to read, continue to study. And it's something that has been pretty much the foundation of our lifestyle as children as well. And I see that, obviously you in that field as well. And that's what kind of the components that you kind of cover. How would you stress on the importance of education today to the young generation out there?
Education is everything. It was our founder, Thomas Jefferson, that kind of highlighted, paraphrase, ignorant and free can never be. Our founders understood that the way we had a chance to think, to read and write, to understand what wisdom comes from, and it is, if you get that understanding and learn to think outside the box, always ask those questions why, then we become not only a better person, but we help our country become that better place. I was very blessed. My dad was an educator. For 40 years, he was a professor at Florida A&M. My mom was an educator, a high school teacher. So we lived in an environment, and during the time, one thing that also about the time I grew up in the Deep South in the 60s, days of segregation, KKK, Jim Crow. But within our community, we had a lot of pride. We felt like all the other Americans at that time. We were not assimilating, but we were proud to be Americans. My dad had just come back from World War II. We felt that the way to get respect was not by demanding it or begging for it, but commanding it by success. And so education was that gateway. We figured out if we can teach ourselves to be proud, to be articulate, to bring a presence and a value whenever we come in, then we will command respect. Mm-hmm. And that's where the community went. So I think education is at the very core of where our country moves forward. And that's really where I think we failed our kids for a long time. The fact that we now have 70% of eighth graders not being able to read and write, do math, that we have failed our kids to do the basic things to make sure we move forward. So that's at the core, and right now, part of my mission is making sure I do everything I can to help as many kids as possible to have what I had, just the ability to wake up every single day and knowing how to articulate myself, knowing how to get better at overcoming those obstacles, learning how to read so you can take information in, become wiser. If you can't read the scriptures, you don't know your connection that you have to to a God in heaven who's placed us here with certain talents to do certain things. And that connection and understanding that is so important when you come down to dreaming or overcoming obstacles. And I'll say that one of the best things that I've learned through the obstacles is, number one, that I am here for a reason, like all of us are, that I have a remarkable opportunity to do one thing with the experiences I've had, and we talked about this a little while ago. As we go through it, the message we have to give to others is, if I can do it, you can do it. Mm-hmm. So I think part of my experience is the obstacles I've gone through is be able to give that little bit of inspiration that, it's going to be okay. If I can do it, you can do it. If I can overcome obstacles I've overcome, you can also make those same options.
And speaking on this topic of education, there's sometimes it's misinterpreted. People watch the news and they end up seeing maybe the elimination of the Department of Education and what that actually means, because of just the growing tension. There's always going to be people that are going to misinterpret or misunderstand what effect that has on Utah's education system.
Absolutely. We have to understand that what makes our country what it is, and the greatest place in the history of mankind, is competition, is merit, is innovation, is giving the best product for the best price. That's capitalism. We've had capitalism in every other industry we've dealt with. The reason we came to this particular studio is because of capitalism. Something about it, whether it be whatever it is that makes it so this is the right place, the thing to do. The one place we have not had capitalism involved is education. And I think it's been on purpose. We have an environment where it's kind of like a monopoly. Everyone is forced to go there. No one pays the consequences for failure, and there's no competition to go out elsewhere. If you do that, then you get the worst product at the worst price. Mm-hmm. We have failed for our kids, and it started with the Department of Education. It was not there to find out how to make sure our kids were getting smarter. It was there to provide a nice space for adults, a nice, comfortable, secure job. We can just continue to make a good income. And the result of that is now we have kids across our country cannot read and write, cannot do math. I have no idea what our history is all about. I have no pride in our country. You come from South Africa, you have more pride in our country than people who have grown up here. And there's something wrong with that. So the Department of Education was there for one reason, should be for one reason, for the kids, not for adults. If it's failing, then we need to do something else. I think personally the best power to be put in terms of education should be in the parents' hands, in the local area, in the districts. We have here in Utah, we have a culture that cares about our kids, number one. We want to make sure we have the smartest, most productive, most hopeful kids in the entire world. So why not have the funding come here so we can give our teachers and our parents a chance to make sure our kids are being treated right, versus having all that money being taken in D.C. with no accountability, with adults living a good lifestyle, but not having a good product. So we're at a really good place because I think COVID was part of it. Excuse me, guys. Sorry about this. I think COVID kind of helped. It gave parents a chance to kind of take a pause and realize as they looked over their kids' shoulders what they were being taught, the direction they were being given, how little they actually knew, and realized this is not the way I was raised. This is not what I was expecting. So they began to take more of an active role in terms of the education of their children, and they began to demand more from the districts. And right now, choice is a big deal because choice goes through everything we do, every aspect of our life, the car we drive, the direction we take, the GPS system we use. It's all about choices. And we should have the same thing in education. We do that, we're going to find innovation that we've never seen before. We're going to find ways of thinking and approaching and giving our teachers, the good teachers, a career that allows them to truly excel. I look forward to the day that we put our focus back on the educational system. That's what like we do in any other arena. My dad was an educator. My mom was too. They loved it. They got excited about seeing their kids exposed to things that they will help them to grow. Excuse me. Excuse me, guys. And with that being said, of all the environments, of all the industries that we can highlight, the industry of education should be at the very top, because we can do everything else right. We can fix everything else, but if our kids do not grow up to understand their potential and to pass this legacy down, then we've really lost the whole fight. So I'm looking for an opportunity not only to have our kids being brought up in a much positive way, but having our teachers, those that are really doing a good job, highlighted, paid well, respected, and that occupation bringing so many other people from other occupations that would love to teach also.
I love that so much. Thank you so much, Congressman. I'm pretty sure you've recently seen, or you guys are very well aware of that Utah has been ranked #1 state in the nation to live in for 3 years in a row. Part of that has a lot to do with infrastructure, standard of living, and the economy as well. What do you think that Utah has done separate compared to the rest of the 49 states, and what can they look to do to improve?
That's a good question. To me, it's an easy one because I grew up in an environment very similar to what I'm finding here. I grew up in an environment in which the 4 tenets that we were taught was bought into by the entire community. Mm-hmm. So we had great families, great communities. We had kids coming out thinking that my goal is go out to succeed, so I reflect very good on my community and my family. And those tenets was faith, family, the free market, and education. I don't think there's any culture in the entire country that has that in such a focused way than Utah. It's kind of just who we are. And it starts with learning what service is all about. We're the only culture across the country that works hard to have our kids for 18 years to grow up, to go someplace around the world nobody wants to visit. And they celebrate when they leave, and 2 years later they celebrate when they come back, because they know that in the process they learn about service, they learn about overcoming obstacles, learn about the anxiety of failure and still making it through it all. And more importantly, taking risk, which is where the entrepreneurial spirit comes from. So I think what we're doing here, we're not only the #1 in terms of education, we're #1 in terms of innovation, the growth of our country. No state's growing as fast as we are. We just came recently the happiest state in the country. So we put all that together, you start to see that there's an environment that people come and visit us, and they just want to keep coming back, either come back to visit or come back to stay. So we have to hold on to that. Again, it goes back to those 4 tenets: faith, family, the free market, and education. If we hold on to that, then we will truly be, I think, the light for the rest of the country in terms of how it is to assimilate, how it is to dream big, how it is to overcome obstacles, how it is to maintain the family structure, which is everything. It makes everything work out okay. So I'm one of those guys. I'm glad I sent my kids. I have 6 kids. I sent them all to go to college out here, thinking they were going to come back to the East Coast. They decided to stay, and so we decided to follow. And it's the greatest move I've ever made, to say the least.
And just to add on that, thank you so much. When I first came here in 2017, I came for obviously my Faith Journal conference time. I spent a month, did the whole tour around the West Coast, Nevada, California, and so forth. And then I came back again to Utah. And while being here, I started seeing just small businesses just thriving. I started seeing everyone just supporting small businesses. I started seeing just young entrepreneurs owning homes at the age of 22, which is something I've never seen in my entire life. They just finished their mission a year or 2 years later, end up owning. That's when I started seeing that there's something that Utah's doing so significantly different compared to other states. And it's just something that not only just people go out and serve their missions, or for 2 years of service mission, they still come back and they go do door-to-door sales, whatever it may be. There's a level of self-reliance that is just being taught from parents to their kids, and I feel like that's something that Utah's doing significantly well compared to other states. Would you say that?
I think the key to success, one of the things that I've come to understand, is how willing, if you have a big dream, how willing you are to overcome the obstacles, the anxiety, the self-doubt, the fear of failure, all those things that stop so many people. If the dream is big enough and you get those habits, those little habits of continuous doing the things you feel uncomfortable to do, that you realize it's going to be okay when you get past it. And that's what the culture does here. So I always surprised that we have so many entrepreneurs. No, it's not at all. And the biggest thing about those entrepreneurs, they're taking risks. Many don't make it, but they get back up and they try another time and another time. So they continue learning, and the message always comes through. And this is what I've seen in this particular state. You hear the stories of the struggle. I love the fact that those who succeed are humble enough to say, you know what, I did it because of this. I did it because I was tenacious. I did it because I had this faith. I had a family backing me up. Whatever it is, if I can do it, you can do it story is so important, because hope is, at the end of the day, the one thing that we need to hold on to, continue to move forward. And once you lose that, then everything becomes dark. Everything becomes, why even try? And unfortunately, that's a lot of our country, that's what's happening right now. We have so many people that are hopeless, do not have family around them, do not have anyone that's pulling for them, have no faith in a God that they're connected with. And I can't even imagine how tough of a life to go through with that. And that's why it's our responsibility to not only succeed, but give the message out that there is a way you can get through this, and just hang in there. And the better the struggle is, the overcoming, the better the story is, the more hope comes out of the process.
I love that so much. Thank you, Congressman. I want to talk about now just your NFL journey, your football journey. I never understood the sport, by the way. At home, I used to. My dad's a big fan.
Your football is different than our football, right?
It's literally football. So, however, how I first became accustomed to like the sport, my dad's a massive fan of Remember the Titans.
Okay.
And so, obviously based on a true story, and like I think I kind of like made a symmetrical, kind of like likened it to your story when you're one of the first African Americans to actually receive full ride scholarship in Miami as well, University of Miami. Would you say your journey started very similar to like the Remember the Titans way?
That's exactly how my journey started, and it's interesting because I saw that. I connected to it immediately, and now that I've caught up with some of my other friends that I came through during that era, during the high school era, they all see the same thing. I grew up in the 60s. I was the third one of three blacks to integrate this all-white high school. And that first year was very similar to what you saw there. The upside, and this is what I love about sports and military when it's pure, when it's right, when it's based on merit, is you learn to see past the differences because the goal is to win. So my first year at Rickards High School was very similar to Remember the Titans. We did a lot of fighting. We had to figure out how to, it's interesting that we've come so far that everything was color. I mean, you judge based on your color, both sides. We never had this opportunity to really assimilate or to connect. So we're learning about each other during this process and learning to overcome the prejudice of our fathers. And it was a tough kind of period to go through. But then you find something in common where all of a sudden you begin to respect each other because of the value you bring to the team. And if the goal is to win, then all of a sudden you're high-fiving guys that you might not have liked before because of his color, but all of a sudden you realize this guy can help me to win, and so it's something that brings us together. So that's what I experienced, and it was one of the best things I think I've gone through. A couple things. Number one, to see how it works when merit is at the very top, when you believe that you're trying to win, and the best talent, no matter what size, color, religion, none of that matters. It's who can help me to proceed to where I can feel good about this process. I'll say the other piece of it is how far we've come. One thing about our country, and it's in our founding papers, is our goal is becoming more perfect union. Now, I'll say this about the founders: the fact that they begin with that statement says a lot about how humble they were to realize they were not perfect. You have people today who cast disparities on everybody else because everybody else is doing things wrong, as if they have this perfect life and they don't, or this perfect place where they know everything. We have a country that recognizes that we're humble enough to know that I'm not perfect, we're not perfect, but we can become better, and then look back and say, look how far we've come. The era that I grew up in the 60s, where literally we had no assimilation, we didn't interact based on race. And now here we are, 60 years later, my family, I have 6 kids. We represent Black, white, Hispanic, American Indian, and Trinidadian. I have 17 grandkids. They call each other cousins. The color of the rainbow, and that's the way America has always been. They don't think about color. They think about the love they have as cousins. They hang out together, and that's the way America works. So I would say that era that I grew up in was probably the best because I can now look back and realize the potential that we've always had. We just have to recognize it. And so, to say the least, it was a good period to go through it. When you went to University of Miami, I was the third black to get a scholarship there. One other thing that I just want to point out, when I went to University of Miami, it was not to play in the NFL. This was before the NFL was the big game it is today. My dad was a college professor, so my goal was to become a marine biologist because I was spending a lot of time in his laboratory during the summers. And this is also during that period where the biggest obstacles we had, other than the Jim Crow segregation, was the low expectation we had on ourselves or other people had on the race. We were not supposed to be intelligent at that time. That was the thing that we always had to overcome. When you look at the marches of Martin Luther King in those days, you go back, think about what you see. You see people dressing and marching in the middle of summer, white shirts, dark ties, very articulate leaders, very disciplined. So no matter what was said or what was done, they disciplined themselves because they wanted to show that we were a race that can control ourselves, a race of character, a race of principles, a race of very smart, articulate, principled people. And that's how we gained the respect of Americans across the country. Folks had never experienced what black Americans were doing because of segregation. They saw a race that was fighting for the right things, doing it in the right way, commanding respect because of the discipline we had in so many different ways. And it was just a good thing to see and experience it, to see how that works. And we have to continue to do that, by the way. We have to always recognize that if people don't have high expectations for us, prove them wrong. Just work harder, do better. Don't fall into the trap of buying into their expectations. Have ours that are very strong. No matter what community, what race, what individual, we can all do the same thing. Just set our goals high and never fall into the trap of the low expectations that other people might have of us.
I love that so much, and with all the interviews that I've watched and everything some of your speeches, I like that you touch a lot on not being a victim, being a victor as well, and I think it's very, very important. The only topic that I feel like probably, in my opinion, needs a better solution, and I want to before I kind of get the topic, I strongly feel I don't want to be a hypocrite because, like I said, I'm from a family. A household of two, raising great parents, good-looking parents as well, you know. But there's a topic that I feel like is a little controversial today, which is the DEI topic.
Yeah.
The reason when I kind of went through the stats that I wanted to quickly share right now with ethnicity of children that live with both parents, with white parents, kids is 74%, black is 39.7%. And then you look at only living with the mother, or white kids is probably 7.4%, and then the black kids is 48.1%. So there's almost like 50% of children that are just raised in a motherly household. And I understand the importance of having a dad in the household. I've seen that in my entire life, and even growing up in South Africa, almost most of my friends had both parents as well. I feel like there's a growing concern happening today in the United States, and the reason I speak about the DEI, I don't believe people necessarily need pandering. I don't believe people need to be, hired off like merit. I still feel like there's a family structure that may put people in a disadvantage sometimes in certain situations. Do you think there could be better things done to try and help solutions for that situation?
Absolutely. And let me just start off by the family unit that I grew up in, because I've seen what it is in a segregated community when those four factors, faith, family, free market education, was at the foremost. I grew up also with a mom and a dad. Matter of fact, back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, because of the commitment we had as a race to those four tenets, we led the country in the growth middle class, led the country in men matriculating for college, men committed to marriage. At that time, 80%, up until the 60s and 70s, 80% of black men would marry the mothers of their children. It was just the way it was done. We were just brought we're brought up to think that you commit yourself, you have a good name, you want to make sure you take care of your family, and the way you do that is raise a good family, raise good kids, and move forward. So 80% of black men married to their mothers of their children has now turned to 20%. It's flipped upside down. We have lost the idea of what it is to be responsible, dedicated fathers. We're allowing our mothers to try to raise boys and girls on their own, and think there's not going to be any consequence. So we have a choice. We have a choice of deciding where we want to be committed, men to our families, to our kids, to our name, or not. And unfortunately, when we're not committed, we pay a deep price. It is unfortunate to see the increase in the negatives, the crime rate, the abortions, all the things that happen when you pull your way from that family unit. And I'll say this too: it's important to recognize the idea of the family is so critical to success. And that's why it's under attack at all times. So I would say that because of my background, I know what can be, and that's why education is so important. We need to make sure that we have, and just one other thing that I was raised as a young man that I think we need to bring back in a big way. And I was taught this by my dad, and if I ever forgot it, my dad would always remind me. It says, to be successful, to be happy, to be a productive individual, to have a good family one day, learn to love God, country, family, respect women and authority. What are we seeing mostly nowadays because of the breakdown of the family? A disrespect of women, a disrespect of authority. And people, you have young men now filming disrespect and thinking it's cool just to, instead of stopping it, they post it. That is the mindset we have to get away from. We have to take on the idea that we have responsibility to not only to have a good name ourselves, but to be able to pass down something out to our kids and our wives will also want to be proud of. So it's a different mindset, but it comes down to family. If you understand that piece of it, which I was raised in, and many of us were, and it's still very prevalent here in Utah, that is where the rest of it kind of begins to kind of become a fulfillment of what we want to try to get done, the success we want to experience.
I love that so much. Thank you so much. And I know that you're also CEO of a nonprofit.
Can I say one other
yes,
thing?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Because you mentioned DEI. I just want to make that point. I grew up at a time when everything was about color. You were judged based on the color. You met somebody in the 60s in the segregated community, and if it was a white person, they saw you a certain way. If you were a black person, they saw you a certain way. Our goal is to become a more perfect union by looking at each other from inside out, not outside in. We looked at character. We're supposed to look at the tenacity, the desire to be a better person, a nicer person. That has nothing to do with color. And for us to say that we're a victim because 200 years ago, someone we had no idea, we never met, many of you don't even know who they are, because they were slaves, that we deserve something today is not the American way. So DEI is probably one of the most racist things that I've seen since I was raised in the 60s. It's saying that we should have the right to look at somebody and make a choice that they cannot succeed. Matter of fact, think about this. Only way that DEI is ever really used is never in the intellectual, it's never in the physical, in the sports. We don't see DEI in football. You don't see DEI in basketball. You don't see it in areas where you have to compete and you physically have to overcome obstacles. You see it, the victimization when it comes down to intellect. You see it when the bar of education is lowered so that certain people can succeed, quote, succeed and progress, not knowing if you don't earn that progress, you'll pay a price at some point. So the bottom line of this is we live in a country of merit. We live in a country in which you can compete one against each other. And guess what? Under the skin, we're the same. Our heart beats the same way. Our blood flows the same way. We dream the same way or we don't dream the same way. Underneath that exterior is what truly makes us who we are. That's who we need to start building up and respecting and recognizing that's what draws us to people, or that's what tells us not to go to a certain way. So I think I'm so glad we're getting away from that because it does probably the worst for those who buy into it, which are the Black Americans who are put at the very bottom of the totem pole in terms of the opportunities, the soft bigotry of soft bigotry of low expectations. That's what we see when you have this process of DEI.
And just a quick follow-up on that. Do you think then there could be like better programs to help those that are in a disadvantaged and like raised up in like different family structure and like poor education? Like
choice.
Okay.
Choice. If you allow kids to be educated, I don't care what color they are. If you tell them they can succeed, that you have the highest expectation, I don't care what color they are, they will match those expectations. So instead of us, particularly in those areas where education is the worst, opportunity is the worst, crime is the highest, abortion is the highest. So in those areas where, in the urban areas in particular, let choice be part of it. Those moms and dads want their kids to succeed like anybody else. And yet they sit back and they watch the failure of our school system, and there's nothing they can do as that child begins to have a low self-esteem and surround themselves with people with low self-esteems, and then go out and do stuff that will never get them moving forward. So let's have choice in education. Let's make education the top priority in our society. Let's bring the best teachers in the entire country. Let's teach them this, let's prepare them, let's reward them, and then let them go into these communities where in the past they've had no opportunities. And you can see it uprising. I watched it in my community. Again, my first exposure to white Americans wasn't until I was 16 years old. But yet we were taught how to think, how to articulate themselves, how to be disciplined, how to respect others. And that group, that was the Clarence Thomas group. That was the, you go through all the Dr. Anyway, you can go through all the Susan Rice, all those folks that came through my era that grew up in a segregated community, that have gone on to become very successful. We had the same thing in common. We had parents that cared. We had an educational system. We had Black teachers that were teaching their kids. That was their contribution. And we came out of those communities saying that we're going to go out and succeed to put a good name and a good message and reputation on the community we just came out of. We can do that, and then we'll overcome all this stuff that we're going through right now.
I love that response. Thank you very much, Congressman Owens. Just to respect your time, I just probably got 3 more questions before we conclude. One of them, I often feel that day-to-day American actually agrees more than they disagree. I feel like sometimes media might portray a different narrative as well. Do you think there'll come a time where the country will be a bit more united than what it has been the past few years, where instead of saying people are so divisive, where we actually come together, considering how you've seen that you only win when a team comes together?
Yeah, I do. And I see it happening because we're starting to educate our kids in a different way. We have a very aggressive program of getting choice across the country right now, and I'm part of that. Right now, I'm excited about being part of that. Now, when I talk about my mission is make sure that every child has access to their dreams. And that's being able to read, write, think, have conversations. You know, what's happening when you have an educated people, they can actually talk to each other because you have so much confidence in yourself that you can talk to somebody who doesn't agree with you and still be okay. You realize if I'm nice, if I'm respectful, one day I'll bring them over my way. And if we both think that way, it's a win-win. The problem is when we can't think, you kind of reach your limit of solutions. People get frustrated, they pick up a stick and they hit you with it. And if you talk to anyone who's very angry today, have a deeper conversation, realize how little they really know about very much. They're very emotional because that's what they've been trained to do. But the goal right now is actually, again, to get back into where we can have these conversations. I believe our country is just at the very beginning of doing some great things. We're going to have competition, merit in education. We're going to expose our kids more to our history, our Western civilization that's been over time. It's a spiritually based culture. It was one of pioneers, of people who took risks, who saw something bigger, whether it be coming across the ocean at the pyramids or to leave the west and come to the east and come to the west through all these mountains. They saw something so much bigger than themselves. They were willing to take that risk and take the chance. And once they got out here, they built things. They took something they wanted to give a legacy to our kids. Once we get back to recognizing why are we here, really, we're here to make sure our kids have a better life, a better legacy than we have. Every generation has done that until now. We have a generation now that we're about to turn it around that doesn't believe that right now we're boarding more of our kids than ever before. It's a generation in which our kids are less educated than we were. They're less appreciative of our flag, of our country, than we were. We've turned things around in a way, this last generation, that we have to right the ship. We right the ship by focusing on what can we do to make sure our children live a better life, that we at one point look at them, they're running circles around us. And we're so proud of them because they're doing that. That's what every generation has done until now. And we're finally, right now, I think, back to where that's going to be our focus moving forward. So I'm more optimistic than I've ever been, because once our country begins to have conversations together, once we realize what we have in common is we the people, then the things we can do is unbelievable. And coming back together right now is, I think, the ultimate goal that we all have.
I love that. Thank you so much, Congressman Owens. Super Bowl champion, 1980 with the Oakland Raiders. I think Super Bowl is one of the most amazing achievements one can actually gain as sports, especially in the United States as well. What's the best lesson that you've learned from that experience?
What a great question, because this is something that I've tied into my team. So what I'd like to remind people who don't know, there were 12 years of losing seasons before I got to the 13th.
Wow. My
last year in high school was a losing season. 4 years at the University of Miami, all losing seasons. 7 years with the Jets. The Jets are doing exactly now what they did back 40 years ago. So it's 12 seasons of losing. And I'll be honest with you, I came to a point, my seventh year with the Jets, that I really thought about retirement. I was so frustrated. I was, I guess, getting a little depressed. That I watched my guys winning. They're going to playoff games and Super Bowl games. And no matter how hard I seemed to work every single year, how optimistic I was that this year's going to be much better, it always ended up the same. And 12 years in sports is a long time. So I had no idea the 13th I was going to be traded to the Raiders. And even though we were on a team that was not expected to do very well, we were underdogs the entire year. We were the first wildcard team to get to the playoffs, the first wildcard team to win a Super Bowl game. So all along the line, we were not supposed to be there. And to see a team come together, to see what it was to all of a sudden not really be concerned about anybody else on your team, just making sure that you were not the weak link. To see what team really felt like, in which everybody felt the same way, that we can win 1 week at a time. It was a remarkable experience. And my message from that, and this is kind of a life lesson, I talk about that 13th season, winning the Super Bowl, sitting in the locker room and just so excited about being there. And the only thing we regretted, we had nobody else to play when it was all said and done. We just loved the camaraderie, the feeling. But the message that comes out of that is everyone has a 13th season. And that's when everything works out. Everything it came together. It's everything you looked at of going through, it's been so well worth it because you're here, you succeeded. But it's the 12 seasons before that makes that 13th season possible. It's the ups and downs, it's the tough times, it's the lessons you learn, it's the tenacity, faith, forgiveness. Think of all the things that we want to become better at, to become a better person, is learned through those tough times. And that 13th season just is a confirmation that it was all worth it. And then when you get to the 13th, you go through it all over again. So I would say that was one of the best lessons. And I thought about this much long after the season, my career was over with. I thought about how that worked out and how much I learned during that time, including probably one of the best things I had done during the time. I was very introverted during that most of my life. But my last season in NFL, I read a book, and that book changed things around. It was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Best book ever,
It
by the way.
is. It's a classic.
Life-changing.
And that's exactly what happened. I realized that who I would be is what I thought about, who I associated with, and what I said to myself. If I told myself I'm shy, I'm introverted, I will always be that way. If I say I love to talk to people, I'm bold, and if you say those things, your tongue allows your mind to really think in a different way. So that 13th season allowed me to also to learn how to change the progression of my life moving forward. Excuse me. Boy, excuse me, guys. And so that was one. We have a 13th season, and the last one that our team does so well, both here in the district and D.C., because you look at the scoreboard continually and you see the score is not turned out, but you can still make a difference in the way you act, the way you play. So the message is you cannot control the scoreboard, but you can control the hustle.
Love that.
And so here in the district and back in D.C., we have a team that loves to hustle. I feel very proud of that. And then we get the feedback from the folks that we serve that we're just always there. We're always doing what we have to get done. So those are two things I learned from NFL that I've tried to really make sure my kids understood the same things. And I'll say this one last thing. Of all the messages that drives us in our progress is the message we give to ourselves. We have to be very careful about what we say about ourselves. If you want to be shy, tell yourself that all the time. If you don't want to do real bad at math, if you want to be a victim, tell yourself that all the time, and that's exactly what will happen. If you want to be a victor, if you want to feel that you can speak in front of anyone, that you have a talent, tell yourself that all the time. And you're programming your brain to have muscle memory. And when that opportunity comes, you just act on it because you've told yourself that so often. You're not depending on somebody else. Obviously, you'd like to be in an environment you get that same feedback. And that's another choice. Put yourself in a place, whether it be reading, what you look at TV, the people you're around, make sure that's a good influence. You're getting the right message. But at the end of the day, the message that really counts is the message you give to yourself. And that's why Think and Grow Rich is such a powerful, powerful book. It's back in the 1930s, Napoleon Hill put that together, and it is still today impacting lives in a big way.
The best thing about the answer you gave is that I had 3 questions, and that one answer gave an answer to all 3 questions. So I'm not going to get in trouble with Casey. That's the best thing about that. So I want to thank you so much for the lessons you taught, the importance of education, being a victim, not a victim, the lessons you spoke about, like especially the 13th season, because sometimes life can get so overwhelming at times where you don't see the bigger picture. You don't see the end result right there, but like there's always lessons we gain from faith through the struggles we actually experience as well. Congressman Owens, thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Absolutely.